Uh, okay. Today is the select finance meeting at 10 a.m. January 24th. January is almost done. And spring has sprung. We respectfully acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the unceded traditional territory of the Squamish people. And call this meeting to order. Could I get somebody? I'm going to recommend the Select Finance Committee agenda be approved as circulated for today. Thank you, Siobhan and Ward. Thank you. All in favor? Good stuff. And now the adoption of the minutes, recommendation that the minutes of the Select Finance Committee meeting held on December 13th, 2023 be adopted. Thank you. Thank you, Ian, Colleen and Ian. All in favor? Do we need to change that on the agenda because it says 2024? Is that okay? Okay, good. And now on to new business. We are starting today with the Sicamousse District Recreation Center. Bianca's going to start us off on that.
Okay, sounds good. As you all know, we do have Jody Pierce, the GM Financial Services for the CSRD is online right now. But I'm gonna run through this presentation, write down any questions as I go along, because hopefully maybe I can answer some as I go along. And then we'll take some questions and me and Jody can try to answer any questions at the end. I know there's 3 counselors that submitted some additional questions. I'm working through some of those, probably will be answered in this presentation. So yeah. So the rec center.
Yes, Colleen.
I just want to take a minute and just thank Jody for being here today and helping us answer and get through all of this information with us. So thank you very much, Jody. We appreciate you being here.
I'll try to pin her actually.
So it's hard, we can do a bunch of things, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, I know. And
We have Jody's mic.
Jody online?
Yeah,
you got
she
it.
is.
All right,
Thank you, I am here.
good stuff. Thank you. Mayor Anderson, take it away.
Okay.
I know, you're Johnny.
Yeah. Let me click it. Okay.
What does Scott does?
So this analysis, is stemming from our resolution back on August 23rd. And big thing here is to look at the escalations that have occurred in the arena over the past 4 years to determine the cause and possible remedies. So some background, just timeline right now. So since the resolution, so September, we had wildfire support was sent. The district of Sicamousse actually sent a finance staff member a couple of times to help out over there with the CSRD workload as there was a lot of invoices coming in and they needed support. October 9th, the senior manager of the arena changed. October 24th, there was a meeting to discuss the resolution, which included the both CAOs, our mayor and the CSRD chair. And then October 24th to present, had multiple meetings and discussions between staff. Operations of the arena, just so everyone has background, early 1980s to May 2021, the Sicamousse District Recreation Center Society ran the arena for about a year, and Estadia Recreation Inc. Ran it from June 14th, 2021 to May 31st, 2022. And then the CSRD has been operating the arena from June 1st, 2022 to. So staff's big analysis is how did the taxpayers go from paying $218,000 in 2020 to now potentially $395,000 in 2024, an 81% increase. So kind of just so everyone understands the process that happened. I say staff, it was mostly me. Financial information has been received by the CSRD, including budget versus actuals, which you've all been provided in the beginning of January. Financial reports from prior operators, the Society and Estadia, and then other detailed financial reports required through our analysis. I've gone through and grouped individual accounts because everyone has different groupings in their financial statements, so I've grouped them into common groups. Consolidated 2019 CSRD revenue expenses in the society together because it all pertains to the arena. And then I've highlighted the significant changes that have caused the requisition increases. So looking at the operating costs, first, just to look at operating revenues, the revenues. So when the society ran the arena, the revenues were a little bit different because the arena didn't keep all of the advertising revenue. Some was sent back to not-for-profits in the community and things like that. Whereas now it's all contained in the arena. Arena room and rentals. We don't have a ton of information from the society, but overall rentals has increased since coming from the society. Concession sales and the corresponding costs of the concession never went through the society and never made its way to the CSRD requisition. So the 74 and 70 down below.
You want questions later?
So let's do them later.
Okay.
Yeah, write them down, Ian. Got it.
Well, yeah,
You need a pen? You good?
I have a pen, I need a piece of paper.
So overall, revenues have gone up. However, these highlighted items are the big ones for down below, administration. One thing that did happen in previous years is this, what happened is society would have its budget at the beginning of the year, and anything extra that they made would stay in the society. So in 2020, there was 38,000 that stayed in the society. When the society dissolved, there was about 20, I think it was about 25,000 that came back to the CSRD on dissolution. The CSRD was to take any assets back over, so cash and everything like that, anything remaining. Repairs, maintenance and equipment's gone up, which I'll talk about, and salaries, wages and management were the really big ones that were contributing to the increase. So our key accounts, administration of 45,000. So the CSRD has a policy that when it's a fully run function of the CSRD, you pay 10% of the net budgeted net deficit from the previous year. So if you take the operating deficit budgeted last year less their administration, because you're not charging administration on administration, that is the amount, so 45,000. The DOS actually does a very similar things for things that we're responsible for that we bring back to the CSRD. Those three are fire suppression, mosquito and parks. We do a very similar calculation.
And that's to cover like finance, HR, all those administrative duties that.
Yeah, and then repairs, maintenance, and equipment. We have an aging building, so annual budgeted for 2024 is $60,000. Equipment, 20,000. This includes all your Zamboni and all those pieces of equipment. Minor equipment, 56,000 budgeted for 2024. This includes, in the past, this has included new equipment for in the concession, chairs, different things needed throughout the building that isn't substantial enough to put it through capital. Snow removal of 5,000. We have had past claims around the area when it comes to winter time, so making sure that that parking lot is properly maintained. And then the biggest contributor is our salaries, wages, and management. So I just want to thank Jody and HR at CSRD for kind of giving me a bit of a reconciliation to go with on this one. It hasn't been provided because they've been working on it the last few days to give a good breakdown. So changes from 2019 to 2023. 2020 is not a good wage year to compare to, as we had COVID. So there were less hours at the arena. So manager pay and benefits adjustment. The society manager was not receiving a wage that was comparable to market at all. So right off the bat, That's $40,000 increase. Annual increases from 2019 to 2023, 50,000, accounting for an average annual increase of 4%, which staff believes to be reasonable. Addition of the employer health tax that came in 2019, and as part of a CFO, you have to pay that additional 7,000. Additional overhead budgeted, so when.
If y'all could just hang on a
Okay, 1 second, we're having some door issues.
Yeah, definitely some door issues. Oh.
It's working now, okay. So when the CSRD took over, it was determined that overtime was not always being dealt with appropriately, like there is a collective agreement, you have to pick it. You know, hours have to be a certain way, so overtime was an additional 10,000. And new in 2023, there was addition of a facilities oversight of a 0.15 FTE of 16,000. So going from 2023 to 2024, some big changes from last year to this year. Changes from 2023 to 2024, which are subject to change. This 2024 budget has not been approved yet, and there is changes happening to the 2024 CSRD budgets right now, stemming from the last meeting and also just stemming from mayor and directors' conversations with finance. So collective agreement increase 2%, 7,000. Facilities oversight increase of 9%, 1,500. A new community services manager allocation. So this is a 0.3 FTE totaling 45,000, and additional wage budget of 15,000, which hasn't been allocated, so could go towards overtime and those sorts of things. So really, this is an opportunity for council and staff discussions on adjustments. The collective agreement increase, that's in the collective agreement, so that one's happening regardless. But just looking at these allocations and determining what is reasonable. And at the end of the presentation, I'll open that up to Jody just to talk about those allocations. So stepping away from the operating deficit, there's additional things that account for the increase in the requisition, one of them being capital. So 2024 budget compared to back to 2020, we're contributing through our requisition 20,000 towards capital projects. 2024 large capital includes $20,000 condenser catwalk and $30,000 of spray foam installation. And also a very large one is we weren't previously putting to reserves high amounts. So 2024 budget is 50,000 to capital reserves and 10,000 to operating reserves, to a total of 60,000. And then a budget surplus last year is coming over of approximately 11,000 to bring us down to where we're sitting. So a $208,000 increase since 2020, totaling 638,000 total requisition. Just to touch on our capital reserves. So this is our current projection for the capital reserve. Right now, projected ending balance for 2023 is 127,000, trying to build that up. In 2027, we have a large purchase for a dehumidifier. And also, Jody, or get information later, there is a need for a new roof. So we need to build up these capital reserves as we have an aging building.
And there was 500,000 allocated from the community growing fund to that.
Yeah,
For the new
from the
roof.
CSRD,
Yeah.
correct.
Operating reserve, it is CSRD policy to have a minimum operating reserve that will be 2 months of regular operating expenditures. The policy is included in the agenda. And so increasing that to having 10,000 put away every year for that to try to build up that reserve. This is the 10-year projection or 5-year projection, sorry. So looking at the requisition summary, this is where we're sitting for 2024 draft budget. The big changes coming to the operating deficit, as we talked about, capital expenditures 20, transfer reserve 60, offset by some budget surplus. Looking at how that changes affected both Sycamoose and Area E, both over 80% increase. Area E actually a little bit more at 83% total increase. There is, in this tax requisition, we also get some money from the railway tax mitigation. I included a memo in the agenda on that. That amount has not increased for years. So that's why we're seeing a little bit bigger effect there. And now comparing it to the Golden Arena, the Golden Arena is owned by the CSRD, but is run by the town of Golden. So kind of looking at their deficit, our operating deficits for 2024 are very similar. One big thing that Golden is doing that we have not is they're putting a lot more to reserves. But then looking at how that is their requisition, however, is lower because they get a larger amount from the railway tax mitigation of 139,000. Just a good comparison there. This is the draft 5-year budget. So what is proposed right now is that we start, the requisition is going to still be going up. Requisition increase projected for 2025 up 7%. And that is because we need to build the transfer to reserves for capital expenditures. So summary, I've reviewed the financials and reports provided. The tax requisition main increases over the past 4 years due to building and equipment maintenance, increases in staffing costs, and increased funds put to reserves. And just noting that we have a aging building and capital costs are extremely high for this building. And looking at the operating deficit compared to Golden, it is extremely comparable. Overall, if the DOS were to operate the Sycamoose Arena, it is very unlikely that the deficit and corresponding tax requisition would change. And the biggest issue that we foresee is the availability of existing staff resources. Yeah. So I don't know if Jody, if you want to speak at all before we get to questions or.
Thank you, Bianca. I don't really have anything more to add to your presentation, but I am happy to answer questions.
All right, questions and comments. Thank you, Jody. All right, Ian, question?
Well, I guess I'll start it off. I know others have it, but just a couple of clarifying questions. The concession is in there as revenue and obviously expenses. Why isn't that a contractor?
Through the process, normally I would say through the chair. It is a contractor that is providing the service, but all of the revenues and all of the cost of goods are the responsibility of the CSRD.
So isn't that more of an employee? I mean, if you're buying the food and they're giving the revenue back there, that's not really a contractor because normally a contractor would be totally independent in terms of under CRA rules. That they would get the revenue, they would look after the expenses, you would enter into a contract for X number of dollars. So is this somebody who's officially kind of on the CSRD or kind of on the arena salary scale here, or?
No, they are not on the salary scale. They're not included in the salary line item.
Okay. I guess I'm confused on that one because that seems odd to me. But basically what you're saying is that the CSRD buys the food, she goes ahead and sells it, and it looks like pretty much a wash. Doesn't cost, but there's a cost to that contract, isn't there? Like how do you pay her? Is that in there as well?
The cost of the salary is included in the cost of sales.
The cost of sales, okay. Okay. let someone else.
Other questions, Kelly?
Well, and just in further to that, I mean, I haven't looked at the contract recently, but I remember it went to CSRD. I think, I want to say November, December, and I think it's around 30,000.
Correct.
Is what's included in the cost of the concession. That is a payment to the individual for doing the work.
And that's in the cost of sales line.
Correct.
And
Yes.
it's maxed at 30,000.
Interesting.
It's a $30,000 salary to the person working.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
previously when the rec society ran it, it really didn't touch rec society books at all.
Thanks, Siobhan.
Yeah, just through the chair, because it did go through volunteer. It didn't touch folks because they had minor hockey and committees were running them.
In 2019, actually, there was somebody who ran it who was making money from it.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that would be great to see those numbers and to see comparables.
there's somebody who we don't,
Okay,
it didn't go through the rec society or the CSRD, so somebody made the revenue on like another business or person, so we don't ask for their information.
but they just thought they were just allowed to run it through there. and we
Through the
didn't-
rec society.
And the rec society didn't pay them. They just said, oh, hey, I think I can make some money here, and then did it that way.
Correct.
So it was free. Because we weren't paying them. Or rec society wasn't paying.
They did their, yeah,
Okay.
there was no cost. There was no cost. Or revenue.
Yeah, go ahead, Siobhan.
I don't know what new community service allocation means.
Through the chair, the Local Government Act specifies that all costs of a service must be borne by that service. And so, previously, we haven't allocated any time for our community services manager to the arena function. And so, that came to light when Mr. Nietzsche left the organization, and we're in the process of replacing, his position. And so we have inserted that for the 2024 budget year.
Yep.
Through the chair. Sorry, I still don't get it. So the person who's managing the manager at the arena is now getting a salary to manage the arena on top of his salary at the CSRD?
A portion of the community services manager's salary, so that their salary is allocated to the functions that they manage. And part of that is the managing the arena portfolio.
Bianca, can you add something to that?
Can you break it down for me?
Yeah,
Sorry, I'm not
so-
trying to be dumb.
For example, like for us internally, like Daryl's salary gets broken up between general, it gets broken up between water and sewer based on kind of how he spends his time. Okay, perfect. So I guess council's question could be, okay, they're doing a 0.3 FTE. Is that reasonable? Right? 2 days a week?
A third of his time.
Yeah.
A third of his time is going to our arena?
Yes,
Oh.
that's the current allocation.
Okay, Councilor Bushel.
Yeah, through the chair, and maybe Bianca can, first of all, thanks very much for putting all this together, Bianca. Jody, this is, really starts to explain where, some of the increases are. But couple things, this year, there's still gonna be more changes before the budget. When is Derek gonna come? Derek wanted to come as well. Excuse me, is he lined up fairly soon?
Yeah, he's penciled in for February 14th.
Okay.
So that's our next committee of the whole. I think he wanted to touch on the arena, the rail trail, and his emergency services. Yeah.
Okay, great. And then.
For the operational side of things, yes.
Jody, when did you think that the budget numbers will all be in by?
Our budget has to be approved by the end of March. So we've just gone through draft one. We'll be coming back. We'll be making some changes, and I'll be getting into those a little bit later in the presentation. And then we will be going back for draft two for discussion on February 14th as well. And then if there's any further changes at that time, we would, it would go forward for adoption in March.
Okay, thank you. One other question I had. Railway mitigation, is there a formula or calculation why, Golden gets 138 and we get 18? Is there a reason?
It's because of the railway operations that exist in Golden versus Sycamoose. They have a big train yard and related operations for railway.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Anderson. Do you have your hand up?
Oh, no, I'm just thinking.
It looks like your hand's up. You're thinking, okay. Counselor Rich.
Through the chair, the salaries are going up substantially. Are we going to be getting more hours for that, or what's the, like, substantially going up? So are we gonna be open more, or why is that?
The salaries are going up. I mean, they've gone up since the society had the arena, or the operations for the arena. And a big chunk of, so I looked at what they were in 2019 and then what they are going up to in 2024. And so as Bianca indicated earlier, one of the things the manager at the when he was in place through the society was paid at a rate that was not replicable, meaning he was paid very low compared to other similar type positions throughout BC. It was a labor of love for that individual, and he put in far more time and energy and was not compensated to the level that any other person would have been. And so that's where we've got that manager pay and benefits adjustment when we bring that forward into 2023 and 2024 dollars. And so in addition to those costs, so if we had put that into the budget, we would have been looking in 2023 or in 2019 at about a $303,000 salary line item. And then looking at increases since that time, so looking at sort of cost of living and the extended health benefit. In 2022, it would have been $336,000 or $337,000, rough and dirty. And then in 2023, we added additional facilities overhead or facilities oversight for $16,000, and that was to be looking at things like getting the condition assessments done, getting the roof assessment done, and working to secure contracts for snow clearing, that kind of thing. And then in 2024, that's carrying forward, as well as we've now allocated that additional time for our community services manager. So that brings us up to today's budget of approximately $445,000.
Thank you, Jody. I'll give you a follow-up, Counselor Rich.
What does an arena manager in BC make? What is the average numbers?
When we pulled the data the other day, it's somewhere between 90 and 115. It depends on the facility and, you know, the number of sheets, that kind of thing. But that's what we could see based on a quick comparator from looking at Civic Info the other day.
Thank you, Jody. Councillor Bailey and then Councillor Bush. So. Sorry, man.
Yes,
Okay.
so I'm just taking a look at obviously expenses versus revenue. I mean, if we just strip everything else out and we are making or projected to make $124,000 on, I assume mostly ice rental, a little bit of room rental. And then we go down and we look at 455,000 in labor expenses. Like it starts looking pretty bad in terms of the cost versus actually what we're bringing in on revenue. I mean, if it's a business, it's out of business long ago. Obviously it's not, but I'm wondering, with these escalations, at what point does this become something that doesn't make a lot of sense? So I guess my question really is how many full-time equivalents are employed at the arena currently?
So how many employees do we?
Yeah, well, the full-time equivalents, right? There will be some part-time people, because I mean, it's $450,000 in employee costs. Is there like 6? Is there 7? Is there?
Okay, Kelly.
Jody, I actually looked on your budget sheet and your full-time equivalent summary, and I believe for the arena, it said, I want to say like 3.9 was the full-time equivalent. So let's just round up to 4.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if that was from on your
On the,
spreadsheet.
yeah, if it was from the budget.
Yes.
Then it would be the number.
Yeah, so 4.
So let's follow up that. I mean, everyone could do some basic math on what that is an average to full-time equivalent personnel. Have we, that's a lot. It's over $100,000 per person on average.
Yeah, I would respond to that, Councillor Bailey, saying that that's not uncommon. If you look at the salaries of some of the folks that work for us, like water treatment plant, that kind of thing. They're approaching that when it comes to today's world and the skill set that these people have. It's probably comparable. Yeah, Councillor.
And just something to point out that
Yeah.
30% of the wage cost is actually benefits.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Yeah,
I guess what I'm trying to get at is because we have 4 full-time equivalent. If you look at that budget, what does that entail? What does that give us in terms of hours and use and everything else in the arena versus what we used to get for lower amount? I think everyone understands inflation's gone up and, employer health tax, but I'm sorry, like, I guess we're going through the budget. These are the times to ask these questions. I think that would strike some people as being high. So I just want to give the opportunity.
And with all due respect, one of the things that has changed to the salaries line item is the requirements due to the Fernie incident. So where we had, the society in the past was able to get away with having, in some cases, no staff in the building, we can no longer do that. It's against WorkSafe regulations. So we've had to increase staffing just for other legislative requirements that are outside of our control.
Yeah, where sometimes under previous leadership, there would be go ahead and use this room, but it wasn't safe because there was no employees present. Now we have to have that especially after the Fernie incident, where that was awful. That was a few years ago. Yeah. Okay, Councillor Bushel.
Through the chair. Yeah, Jody, we understand that it's really, really important that it's run safe and everything. Well, we did bring it up to Derek when Siobhan and I met Derek at the CSRD. There's, some of the users aren't still being able to access it during the off hours or late hours. So we're still not getting that, the hours of operation to be able to still utilize, being able to get into the rink. So I mean, we still got lots of work to do, and Derek's working on some of the questions that we presented to him. And I still think we're a little premature. I know these are great conversations right now, but once we hear from Derek and once we hear for what the budget numbers are gonna be, I think we'll be in a better position, all of us to understand, how it's gone up. And I do appreciate, I went to all the society meetings for years and Ryan would come into the meeting, Ryan Mitchie, and he'd be at the meetings. You didn't see him much there other than the meetings, but so we had Ryan and you guys didn't charge for that back in the day. And now today you have Derek looking at it and now you're charging. So, that's a huge jump, that 46,000 or whatever it is. So yeah, we understand that. We still got, I still in my mind, I struggle. I know rec centers you have to feed them. But if you feed them, they gotta still work for the community. So we're just hoping we can make it work for the community.
Thanks, Gord. Mayor Anderson.
Just for clarification, the 4 full that we're talking are union staff as well. And they're paid a little bit different on, they're paid overtime when they have to come to the arena after hours. I think they're on a 4-hour
Minimum call.
minimum call. So I think there's more money attached to that than just basic wages. I think that overtime for it could be important.
Yeah.
I'm just assuming that, and Jody, maybe you can clarify that for me.
You're entirely correct, Mayor Anderson.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yes, Councillor Bailey.
Just gonna follow up with one of the questions I added when I wrote in last Thursday, I believe. And I just, again, just on the salary, wages and management, can you break that down? What management fees are versus the salaries for the people who are doing the work?
So the administration and general government fees that are being charged are would include a portion of my time, a portion of our CAO McLean's time, a portion of the board time, as well as all of the finance staff time. So the accounts payable, paying all the bills, the payroll, the HR. And so those aren't included in salaries and wages. Those are included in the administration costs. The salaries and wages are the boots on the ground, the people who are actually showing up at the arena, who are attending regular meetings, like when Derek shows up or when Jared has to go out to talk with Jeff regarding some of the building issues, that type of thing.
A follow-up there. Yeah, I just wanted to know, out of the salary, wages and management line of 450,000 next year. So what's the breakdown on, what's the management cost of that versus unionized wage costs, right? Because there's two, right? We have a manager and then we have a manager based at the CSRD that'll manage the manager. What's kind of the breakdown of that? Roughly.
I would say management is about 165 of that. And the rest are for the lead hands, the ice makers, the part-time workers.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Jody. Councillor Rich.
Through the chair. One of the things that just kind of caught me off guard was the phones, fax were 10,000. Does that include the security? That was the only thing I could think of, why the phones were so expensive.
On the budget?
Yeah, on the budget. Sorry, I'm just going through my questions now, so I don't have the budget up. But yeah, it was about 10 grand or 12 grand for phone, fax and something. Maybe Bianca,
That account includes all of the TELUS and MassCon invoices, Jody, and I believe 1 or 2 cell phones. So that costs monthly. So that would be internet, telephone, I'm guessing security system is usually through TELUS.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was a security, because I mean, even if there's two cell phones and mask on, it's 10 grand is quite a bit, right? $1,000 a month.
There's a lot lumped in there.
Yeah,
And
that's the problem is you can't tell.
Councilor Bushel?
Yes, through the chair. Jody, just a couple quick ones. Your janitor, I noticed the janitor and supplies and garbage is the janitor on payroll? Or is it a contract? Cause you have garbage in there and in two places, so I wasn't too sure. You have garbage. You got garbage at code number 9029, and then you got garbage again at 8650.
So the 8650 is the janitorial supplies.
Okay,
So it would be all of the cleaning supplies, the paper towels, washroom, toilet paper, that type of thing. And so we've reallocated that slightly. So last year we had supplies at 10,000, we've decreased it to $4,000, so that supply line item is basically sort of more the office supplies, your paper, toner, toner cartridges, that kind of thing. Whereas the garbage bags, paper towel, cleaning supplies are now in that 8650 category. And then refuse disposal is actually having waste management come and remove the garbage that's thrown into the bin.
okay, thank you. And then one other quick one, what do you have planned for, I didn't see anything on the, maybe I missed it, on capital expenditures for this year, like what's on the projects? You know, we know we have a leaky roof and we have a sound system that's not working that well, and we also looking at some kind of software for scheduling. Do we know what capital projects are on the for 2024?
So there is $30,000 for some spray foam insulation. The condenser catwalk needs to be replaced. And a compressor rebuild. Those are the capital projects for 2024. And then we have some smaller projects, which would include security cameras, dressing room heaters, some concession appliances, a new floor machine, and some rink board upgrades and an arena sound system.
Thank you.
Councilor Rich?
Through the chair, with the roof, I've heard up to, like, honestly, just through the grapevine or whatever, people saying that the roof's gonna be $1 million. Are there quotes in for the roof? Do we have a date coming for the roof? Like, what do we actually know about the roof?
So we just received the assessment and probable opinion of probable costs in November. We're still working through that. It would appear that it's actually going to be closer to $2 million for a like-for-life roof replacement. We haven't dug too deep into that yet. Jared, the facilities individual who received it, left to go on holidays shortly thereafter and was gone for the better part of 2 months. So we're just digging into that at this point. Once we have a better idea of what's in that report and get our questions asked, then we will look at including it in the 5-year financial plan. But it's looking like it's going to be, one, we have to increase reserves to get to that. It's going to also probably need to be borrowing.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Anderson?
That's okay. Jody, do you know if that roof costs, because when Kelly and I met with previous management, they said somewhere between 2 and 3 million. But they also mentioned that the structure of the building itself was getting jeopardized because of the water coming off. The roof wasn't large enough and the concrete work below it, does that include any of the infrastructure, the work to the building as well, or just the roof? Do you know?
At this point, I believe that's just the roof.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Jody. Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, just gonna ask another question I submitted earlier. Just here, I'm just gonna ask a question that was always kind of confounding to me is why, how did we come up with this split? You know, Sycamore's paying about 64%, CSRD Area E contribution is whatever the remainder is. How was that calculated? I see it's going back several years though.
Yeah, at the time that the service was established, there would have been boundaries identified through Area E and Sycamore's, and then it's based on the value of converted assessment.
So,
Kelly?
yeah, just so I can, so, and this is how it works for a lot of our service establishment bylaws, unless it's specified in the bylaw what the allocation is, but it's very common. It's based on property value assessment. So you take all the boundary of Area E, all of it of Sycamore's, and then based on assessed values, that's how the costs are prorated.
And just a follow up on a different one. You know, we operate the arena year round, and one of the things I asked for was what is kind of the monthly revenue breakdown? Because I think that this is a potential thing we probably should be looking at is, do we need to operate it all year round? Is it feasible that we're operating in June, July, August, or something else? You know, do we have a sense of where that revenue comes in? It looks like about 120,000. I assume that's ICE revenue. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, is that spread out over the course of 12 months, or is it just highly concentrated at a time like 6, 7, 8 months?
Are you asking Jody?
Yeah.
So through the chair, we're still working on all of those analyses because we only just took this over partway through 2022. And so we didn't necessarily have good comparable data. And so we're still sort of working on those types of answers.
Okay, and Kelly?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I believe like Golden doesn't do summer ice, do they?
They don't do ice in July and I think partial August.
Right, I'm not saying we want to do that or not do that, but I do think it's a valid question just to take a look at the cost of summer ice and whether it makes sense or not, right?
Well, and I was just like, what's kind of the breakdown? If it's not being used in those periods of time, then that's something logical to be looked at. It's just one of the questions because it wasn't a data point that we actually had. It's just, you know, when it's all lumped in as one revenue line, there's big differences of when that revenue is actually realized versus everything else. Same with costs, right? Sometimes having a monthly breakdown on cost gives you a pretty clear picture of what you should be doing and what you probably shouldn't be doing if you're trying to maximize, you know, the use versus the cost of it. That's all.
Gotcha. Mayor Anderson.
Yeah, two questions to Ian's point. I think that, yeah, I think we'd like to use the arena, but to make sure that we're managing it properly. And if there's revenue to be had in the summer, we should be chasing that revenue.
Mhm.
If there's not enough revenue to have that ice in there, then you're absolutely right, we shouldn't be doing that. So I agree with you there. My next question is about the tax assessment and us paying 62% compared to, is that figured out annually?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
that's-
every year it changes based on the
Okay,
assessment
thank you.
values. That's why the rate changes 62, 63, 64%.
Yeah, okay, copy that, thanks.
Yeah. Gotcha. One more?
Yeah, I just, like another one, that I had written down was you know, we have a 5-year projection. I think we were talking about revenue. Do we actually have a business plan? Because I mean, we're operating what is part business, part public asset. We're trying to get revenue. But do we have a bit of a plan on how to increase that revenue? I mean, looks like the expenses are the expenses. The only way that we could maybe get this arena to a more affordable level for taxpayers is trying to find some more areas that we could improve on the revenue side. So have we kind of thought that through a business plan process, or, you know, again, you're just at the beginning of this process as well?
Through the chair, I think that will be one of the points of interest for the new community services manager to come in and evaluate. Up until this point, you know, we've just been trying to get our feet under us, so to speak, and I know that that was one of the things that New Stadia was supposed to be doing, and I don't know that it ever came to fruition. So we are, it's certainly on our radar to be looking at that, but it's not, there isn't one currently.
Quick follow-up.
Yep.
I guess that just leads me to, what are the operating hours of the arena? Because I've had people contact me saying, you know, they would like to have ice at certain times of days, but that wasn't possible because of the operating arena times. What are the operating hours that people can book ice on a normal basis, I guess?
Jody, is that on the website?
As far as I understand, it is on the website but I don't have that information at hand. I'm sorry.
Thanks, Jody. Siobhan?
Through the chair, Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30, the arena is open. The gym is supposed to be 8:30 till, I believe, 10, but there has to be someone in the building
Right.
to access the gym, so it actually is 4:30 because of the chillers, right? So those are the hours on the, and then there's public skate, and the Eagles have time in the evenings and things like that, but if you were
Right.
booking those, that's what it would be listed on.
But obviously that changes when there's a hockey game in the evening and other, like when we have like a tournament. So I'm just trying to get a sense of, you know, I guess what I'm trying to get a sense of is 8:30 to 4:30. You know, that's during the day. I mean, if you're open in the evenings, you could probably rent a lot of ice to a lot of different people. I'm just trying to get a sense of how the operations work, but I understand you don't have all those pieces of information, but it would be something that I think we should be looking at really closely, because I know coming from the Lower Mainland, anytime you had any ice after 5 o'clock or even before work that was available, it was always booked. Like there was always somebody that's willing to kind of rent that ice. So this could just be something that we need to look into a little closer, how to maximize the use of it and maximize the dollars that we can get.
Keep in mind that even if you want to rent an hour of ice time and it's after hours, you're paying 4 hours minimum call up to you.
Well, but not necessarily if you actually had people on different shifts, you know?
Gotcha.
Not everybody has to work 8:30 to 4:30 Monday to Friday. So, you know, we have a $455,000 salary budget. Certainly, we could build some flexibility into that, I would hope.
Right, and some of that is for Eagles games and stuff. They are booked for that kind of thing, right? I'm picking up what you're laying down. Kelly, did you have something else?
No, I just wanted to further comment on the hours too. I know I saw a preliminary booking policy that I think Derek will be talking about, and it does clarify hours of operation and everything on there so that everybody can understand, you know, what the hours are, who gets what priority, when people have to book stuff from. And I know that operationally they're switching to some online booking and all that stuff. So and Jody doesn't have all the answers. She just moves all the money around. Whereas when Derek comes, we can talk more about that operational piece. Yeah. But I know there is money like buffer, that 15,000 extra for overtime hours and stuff to accommodate additional usage and hours of overtime staff. And you're right, it is a scheduling thing. So.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Mary Anderson.
Yeah, two things. I think that because we're working on that policy right now, I think Daryl's working with Derek right now, and I think there's opportunity here for us to have some input and make sure that, to Ian's point, there is a plan, because there hasn't been, and CSRD has just taken it over. So we need to work together to get this all, you know, working properly and have a process. But the other thing is, arenas generally don't make money. So I guess my question is, from arenas not making money to arenas, but community subsidizing them because it's a community center. Where's the threshold? Like, you never want to lose your recreation center, your community asset. But yet you don't want it to be so costly that it's prohibiting for taxpayers. Like, so do we know where the threshold is, or do we know what that could look like, or?
You know, it really varies from community to community. Like, we compared ourselves to Golden, it's pretty much relatively consistent. I know Salmon Arms subsidizes their arenas and pool by $1.5 million.
Yeah, there.
About annually, and that's just an about seas from, it used to be $1 million back when I looked at it, so I'm assuming it's up there. So it's just the reality of having those, it's like it's a service, it's less of a business and more of a service for the communities. Cost, it's
Yeah.
never.
And looking at Golden's requisition, like they also have a pool there, and that's another $500,000. So yeah.
Yeah. Gotcha.
Leave the lake.
We have the lake.
I have a technical question. Is it cold in here? You guys good? This is cool. The little cool, it feels like an air conditioner is on. Heat. I know I'm getting older, but maybe turn it up 1 degree or something like that.
It's gonna be a long day, so maybe.
Okay, gotcha.
Keep us away.
Hot air in here. Yeah, okay.
Pay attention.
Okay. All right. Okay,
Okay, so next we're gonna switch gears to the rest of the CSRD requisition. With me. So we have Jody here. Answer any other questions we have about requisition. I don't know if you want to start off, Jody, just with general comments on it.
Okay, so generally we are like I said, just in draft, just finished our draft 1 meeting. And so what that means is that all of the departments and department managers work on their budgets, get the information input, finance then reviews it, and then we update it when we get the completed roll at the end of December. And so that's the information that is provided to all of the board. And it looks at things like the assessment and how the assessment has changed versus relative to other areas within the CSRD. And so, for example, the overall converted assessments increased 5.1%. But Sycamoose converted assessment increased at 4.83%. So where there's regional services, some of that tax burden has shifted away from the district of Sycamoose and into other areas such as Revelstoke, whose converted assessment increased by 14.05%.
Jody, sorry to bug you, interrupt you. Can you explain what converted assessment values is? It's not a terminology we use around our table. Can you just explain what that is?
Okay, so there are total assessments, which is the simply the sum of all of the assessed values within a service area or within an area or municipality. For regional districts, every property then is classified, BC assessment assigns it a classification. It's either residential, utility, industry, either major or light, farm class, not-for-profit, supportive housing, managed forests, and then business/other, which is all of the sort of commercial properties that don't fit in any other classification. So it would be, you know, your arenas and, or sorry, your restaurants, your marinas. Those types of properties would be your business. And so in a municipal environment, your tax bylaw can determine the tax rates for all of the different classes of property, where in the regional district, it's set by the province. And so those raw values are then converted based on a multiplier that's identified by the province. So a business is 2.45 times the total assessment, and a residential is 1 times. So that's how we get to those converted assessments. And so in Revelstoke, they went up quite a bit more. In area F, they actually decreased this year, and area F was where the big fires were in 2023. And so the average converted assessment went up 5.1%. So if you were above that 5.1%, then you would pay a larger share of the regional services and a smaller, if you were below, a smaller share. And then the assessed values on the residential, right? The total increase in residential values went up 2.3%, whereas in Sycamoose, they were up 1.5%. So the mill rate then would change ever so slightly based on the increase in assessment for the average residential property. So in draft 1 of the budget, that shows that there was an overall tax increase of 21.73%, which is the amount that's circled in green. And it represented $39.93 to the average residential taxpayer. Now, before we had done the residential or the completed roll, if the taxes had been exactly the same, right, then the Sycamoose share, it would have been a 22.57% increase, or $50.32 to the average residential taxpayer, because of some of the other shifts in there that are only that say take Revelstoke out of the equation. So things like Shuswap tourism, because the Salmon Arm portion was so much lower, like their increase was in converted assessments was 3.68. So if it's the things like the emergency program, Shuswap tourism, those type of programs, then the burden would have shifted from Salmon Arm to Sycamoose and some of the other local areas. So assessments are an important part of how we determine what each individual player pays into, so to speak. And so in draft 1, some of the big things that have changed or have been included in the budget. And it starts with general government. This is the line item at the very top. This is the first time that we're actually seeing a tax requisition for general government. In years past, we've always been able to fund that using operating reserves or surpluses, but we're not, with the inflation that we've seen over the years, we're not having those same kind of surpluses. And so for the last 4 or 5 years, I've told the board, it looks like next year will be needing to implement a tax requisition. And this year was finally next year. And so there is going to be a tax requisition for general government this year, which is new. And then moving down to the solid waste closure, back in December of 2023, the board endorsed a policy to start taxing for the solid waste closure and post-closure monitoring that is required by legislation to be done. So on our 2023 or 2022 financial statements, we had an unfunded liability of $44 million. And we had $845,000 in reserves. So we are now starting to tax for the closure costs. So that money is going straight into reserves. It is not going to fund any of the operation of the landfill, but it is going into the reserves to start funding that unfunded liability that continues to grow as we incur, higher inflation and those kinds of costs. Because we are required to monitor for, I believe it's 100 years from the time that we no longer use them. And then moving down to tourism shoe swap, we have seen an
Jody,
increase.
sorry, Jody, can I just interject for 1 second?
Yeah.
The solid waste closure, that was at $500,000 last week. And
Yes,
there was
that will be a
pushback.
change for draft 2.
There is going to be a change. So just so that council here knows, in case they didn't notice it, it was $500,000 last week and it's going to be changed.
Yes. Yeah, so I'll go into some of the
Sorry, thank
draft 2 changes when I get through the draft
Okay,
1.
sorry, thank you.
Okay. And so then for shoe swap tourism, the overall tax increase there had been about $80,000. It was a 20% increase. Part of the reason for that is again, last year we had a surplus of over 95, actually it was $155,000 last year. This year our surplus is 44,000. So that's part of the reason for that increase. The other reason is that we had put some money into operating reserves, one to try and get within the compliance policy, but also because we do a strategic planning exercise every 4 years for shoe swap tourism. And that cost is about $60,000. So we were planning on putting some money into operating reserves so that it wouldn't be a big hit on the budget, in the next 4-year cycle. So those are the big things that are happening in the shoe swap tourism one. And we have been challenged to bring that down to about 9%. So staff is currently working on that. And then in the rail trail corridor, we have, there's sort of 3 big line items that affected the increase there. And one is the trail maintenance. It went from $15,000 last year to $90,000 this year. And that is basically for the maintenance on the Enderby test section that's now open. Maintenance on the Sycamoose Tamara section that will be open here shortly. Or it'll be under construction shortly and hope to be open by the summertime. And then also some invasive species management that has to happen. And then access and inspections and log jams, that kind of thing. And then also the salaries went up in that line item as well. from 44 to 84. And that's, again, part of that was last year and this year, 30% of the manager's time was spent on that function. But this year we also included some oversight for the general manager and a parks coordinator, who will be working closely with the maintenance contractor. And then the transfer to operating reserves increased from 25,000 to 52,000. And that was, we've got money going into that for erosion mitigation. And then there's a invasive species plan that gets done every 5 years. And so some money going into that plan. So those are sort of the big things that have changed in the rail trail corridor. And then, of course, the Sicamous Rec Center. So since then, since draft one, there have been a couple of changes. One was to take the 300,000 or the $500,000 solid waste closure amount back to $300,000. So a savings of $200,000 in the line budget. And then we again challenged in tourism to take that increase down from 20% to 9%. And also to look at the rail trail corridor, which we haven't as a management team looked at yet, other than the information that I've highlighted to you. And then there was also one other, there was an FTE included that was a miscommunication amongst management. And so that's coming out. So when I look at where the draft 2 is, just with those couple of minor changes, and I see the Sicamous then has gone from an overall taxation of 19 point, where it was 21.73. It will be net, it's at this point, it's 19.31 or $34.70 to the average residential taxpayer, where it had been $39.93. So we're still working on finalizing surpluses, transfers to reserves, those kinds of things. So there will be some more changes coming, but those were the big ones that impacted the Sicamous tax requisition and, you know, some of the ones that are going to be looked at going forward.
Thanks, Jody. Kelly?
Yeah, thank you, Jody. I know you also had a meeting, I believe, yesterday about the hospital district, and we have nothing on our agenda. Did you want to just quickly, where is that requisition at? What's that looking like?
The hospital district requisition is overall is reflecting a 2% increase this year. We are able to manage that. The capital funding request from Interior Health came in a little bit lower than expected. We are going to be putting some money into reserves. There's a number of big projects that are coming up in the future, and so the board is electing to continue to put money into reserves for some of those projects. What it will look like for Sicamous based on the allocation, if you will, of on assessments, Sicamous will be looking at a 1.7% increase to the tax requisition for the hospital district at this time. It is subject to change, of course, when we get the revised roll in at the end of March. But the board did choose to support the 2% overall increase to the tax requisition.
Thank you, Jody.
Okay, All questions? Councilor McCann.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. Just a question, I guess, maybe through the chair to Kelly or. Were we gonna ask the CSRD to contribute to the operation of our new community health center?
Kelly?
Yeah, no, so I've had some preliminary discussions with John about doing up a cost service agreement. So we're in preliminary discussions. I think right now I'm focusing on getting the facility constructed and recognizing that there is a bit of an operating deficit. So yes, I do have a sample, one that is being used for in Schwab, I can't, for some reason, I can't think of. Yeah, North Shoe Schwab. So it's on my to-do list, but yeah, nothing's been firmed up at this point. Yeah.
Okay, Councilor Rich.
Through the chair. Yeah, maybe to you too, Kelly. We talked about also having an ongoing allocation of money to our cemetery through the CSRD. And instead of, I know that we got $750 once through grant and aid, but is that going to be something that's going to be contributed to?
I don't know if you want to speak to that.
At this point, we haven't discussed, like, that'd be a discussion with Rona and all of
Okay.
that, so, yeah.
Thanks. Councilor Bailey.
Yeah, I just have a question, either Kelly, Jody, just with the rail trail. I mean, we're seeing some pretty big cost escalations. I wasn't on council at the time, but I guess it's my understanding that we entered into some cost sharing agreement. And how was that calculated? And then I guess really what I'm asking either staff or Jody is, what is our obligation to that? I mean, we have about 966 meters of the rail trail in Sycamoose, or we will after the changes because it won't be connecting to the bridge. So I just want to know what does that look like going forward? Because that's my understanding. Is that 125,000 just for that year?
Jody,
Yes.
you want to start it?
So, I will, back in 2017, the CSRD, RDNO and Splatsine jointly purchased the rail corridor. And so, in order to, when we went to the public to establish the service and do the bylaws, the cost apportionment was as determined by the information in front of you, where Sycamoose is paying 30%, Salmon Arm is paying 35%, and then the other electoral areas are paying a percentage as well. And that was set by bylaw back in 2017 based on the public assent. So for any of the taxes, that's how the contribution is going to be split. In terms of the maintenance costs going forward, the maintenance costs for the rail trail are all jointly contributed to, and they're split between the CSRD at 46%, the RDNO at 46%, and Splatsine at 8%. And so if you look at the rail trail budget information that's in front of you, some of those costs, you'll see recovery, and those recoveries are from Splatsine and RDNO for their share of the costs.
Councilor Bailey.
Thanks for that, Jody. Do we have excuse me if you have included it, I must have missed it, but do we have a 5-year projection on what these costs look like? I think you had a projection.
Right there.
Yeah. So Okay.
They go down.
Good? Okay. Anyone else? Councilor Bushel.
Jody, you saying you're still gonna work on that rail trail, budget? You're gonna try to, dwindle that down a bit?
That was some discussion from the board. They wanted me to look at it and provide them with further information.
Okay, yeah, it's just, when we are partners, but when we signed on to this, the rail trail was gonna be 12.5 million and it's now 23, almost 24 million, for the development and to get it up and running. So, 30% is a huge, a huge undertaking for a small community with, 2,300 residents, 2,400 residents, so. Just, if you can dwindle it down, please do.
Mary Anderson.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Bushel. I mean, this is such an important economic driver and tourism attraction for our community, but we have to be able to handle it as well. So I guess my question is with the wages, I don't understand the wages, like they went from 44 to 80, like that's a double plus another manager. So maybe you can just break that down for us.
So last year there was 0.3 FTE allocated to the rail trail. This year there's 0.55 FTE allocated to the rail trail. And that's a reflection of time spent.
Okay.
And is that primarily the community services manager, Jody?
So last year and this year, the community services manager were at 0.3. But this year we're adding an additional 0.1 for the general manager and 0.15 for a coordinator.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councilor Bailey.
Yeah, just on the 5-year projections, you have it going down, or the cost of the rail trail going down through the projection. Actually quite significantly, I think, next year and the years after. What's the case? What's the blip this year?
So the tax revenues are continuing to increase year over year. The total revenue has increased or will be decreasing because there's a lot of grant revenue and capital costs in 2024. We've got the Sycamoose Tamara. It's a active transportation grant. So there's $552,000 remaining in costs for that piece to be built. And that's being covered by $355,000 from a grant, the active transportation grant. And then $197,000 is being funded through I think it might be EOF funds, or it could be operating reserves. I'll have to dig into that a little bit deeper. And then there's $820,000 for the Lansdowne to Armstrong piece. That's also looking at being constructed in the 2024 year. And 500,000 of that is grant. 160,000 is recovery from Nord, and $160,000 is transferred from reserve.
Just a quick follow-up.
Yes.
So next year, our expenses, if I'm reading this correctly, would be 30% of the 611,000 earmarked as a cost in 2025?
It would be 30% of the tax requisition amount. So $533.
30% of that.
Yeah.
It's a tax requisition.
Oh, so it actually increases,
Yes.
actually quite a bit. Okay.
Councilor Rich.
Through the chair, I just don't understand the trail maintenance. So we're at 15, we're gonna go to 90,000 for 2024 projected. Now, Sycamoose is gonna have under a kilometer trail for us. So I'm assuming, and there's 3 kilometers built at this point through Enderby, which is really cool. I went and walked it. But I'm not really sure how we're, like, that's a really big number for,
Very big.
you know, we've got less than a kilometer trail in Sycamoose, and then the trail is not built. So, and I mean, even if it cost of building, I can't, you know, what are we maintaining if it's brand new? It's just a massive number for maintenance for a trail we don't have. And that's less than a kilometer in my mind.
I would have to get Derek or Christina to sort of talk about more on what the trail maintenance amounts are. But we do have to look after, so there's trail maintenance would include signage, would include sort of fencing, any kind of invasive species treatments, you know, garbage cans. When we have the garbage cans out there, they'll need to be emptied on a regular basis. And so it is the trail maintenance for the entirety of the entire trail. And so we're just looking at the built sections or to be built sections at this point. And then we have an additional $65,000 for looking at access points, log jams, and those kinds of items at this particular point in time. That's based on information that's provided by Urban Systems or the Shuswap Trail Alliance.
Okay.
So Tony, that 65,000 is part of trail maintenance.
Yes, it's part of that 90,000.
So that's why it's quite high, okay.
Gotcha. Councilor Rich?
Oh, just through the chair, I mean, again, I'm just having a problem with that number because, you know, the fencing and the invasive species, all that good stuff would be part of the building of the trail. So you would expect, at least in the first year, that there, you know, everything's brand new. So there's not, yes, you have to empty the garbage, but you're not gonna be repainting lines or you know, signage, I would assume would also be in part of construction, not maintenance. So it's a big number for a kilometer.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Anderson.
I think it's 3.6,
Pardon?
3.6 kilometers.
Within Sycamoose, no, it's.
Then second.
Yeah.
Oh, but I'll show you.
Okay, thanks. And I think that some of these questions, I think Derek could probably help us out with as well. But it is, I mean, we do have to weed through this for the budget. So I guess our concerns will be, we'll just get our concerns together and see what we can do to figure out questions like that, like 90K.
Kelly?
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, you know, I've been here for over 10 years and this is the first time Jody has come and explained anything to do with this budget. And really, I just wanted to thank her and I appreciate her going above and beyond because she has to do this for the board. And I know how much work goes in. I mean, this is just these budgets, I know they're important to all of us, but there's a lot of other players that they're also important to because the regional district is huge, right? And so we're actually, when you looked at, because I reviewed Jody's financial plan presentation for the CSRD budget meeting, and we are less than 6% of the region's total revenue, right? So we're a piece of the pie, but we rely on everybody within our region to help make these, you know, different functions work. So I just wanted to say thank you to Jody. And I know we're asking a lot of questions, but they're all important. And I want to make sure everybody feels satisfied. And we may not have all the answers today, but we're like, our staff is also really busy, as I know CSRD is for finance, it's budget, year end, pulling all the numbers together. So we will do our best to collectively work together to ensure like our taxpayers are, you know, getting what they're paying for.
Thank you, Kelly. Councilor McCabe, then Councilor Bailey.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo Kelly's comments and thank you, Jody, very much for taking the time to help us understand how things are working.
You're very
Yes.
welcome.
Very much so. Councilor Bailey?
Yeah, thanks, Jody, as well. Just going back to the rail trail. because I just want to get this straight in my mind, right? Because of how it all works. So the 30% I assume is ongoing. I just doing a quick calculation. Next year will be 160,000 roughly with your projections. What kind of, and maybe you don't know this question, but what is our role in this in trying to help maintain the costs or manage it? I know the CSRD and RDNO manage Splatsine, the ongoing operations of the rail trail. Is that correct?
So the Splatsine Development Corp applied for the $12 million grant that will actually allow us to have the entire trail built out. And then the ongoing maintenance is split 46-46-8. And the Splatsine Development Court is actually doing the maintenance right now of the test section that's already built. And then they'll be doing, I don't know if they'll be doing the maintenance of the Merritt to Sycamoose and the Lansdowne to Armstrong piece as well, or if we'll be going out for a public process with those. And, once the entire trail is built, then we'll have to be looking at costs and, there may be opportunities for, other amenities along the trail that can help, pay for that. And those are things that are, far in the future. The most important part is having this thing built.
Just find out. So our 30% is ongoing, and then I guess it'll be generated how much it costs per year, and then we'll get that tax requisition every year as it goes in the future.
Yeah, like all of our service establishment bylaws. So all of these functions are established through a bylaw. So if you go back to that tax requisition, with all the services that CSRD does, those are not via an agreement. Those are other things, like our mosquito control is an agreement. There's certain things that are agreements, and then there's other things that are service establishment bylaws, which are a lot more meaty, for lack of a better word. And so all the participants, once you agree to it, it's like a marriage. So it's like easy to get into, really hard to get out of, because then all the other participants are like, staff is getting, you're getting staff and you're relying on other people to contribute in order to make these services happen and occur. So, yeah, so.
Where did this start when we entered into that service establishment? What was the dollar figure?
It was always 30%. So
What I meant, because I think there's a lot of escalation, like where people kind of thinking it's going to be 30, 40 grand a year, and now we're at 60. Is that, because kind of the same thing has happened with the arena over time, right? It started at one level, and now obviously with escalations, it's not anybody's doing this on purpose, but there is significant escalations in costs. So where did it start out at?
I'd have to go back to the original service establishment and the information that was sent to the, distributed to the public. I know that when it went out to the public for initial assent, it was largely just talking about the acquisition costs. And that the maintenance costs would be coming at some point in the future, because it wasn't going to happen immediately, because it was largely going to need grant funding in order to build it. And so now with having all the grant funding in place to have this built, we're now looking at costs. But the service establishment bylaw, I'm just going to have a look here.
It does have a max requisition on it as well. So there is a threshold where you're not allowed to requisition more than this amount. So it's not unlimited requisitions. There is a cap. I can't remember off the top of my head what it is, but there is a cap on the requisition.
We'd have to
So
do
there's a
research.
max tax requisition of 6 cents per thousand. Or 973,290 is the total tax requisition at this particular point in
Okay.
time.
From Sycamus.
No, in total.
Okay,
And so ours would be 30% of that. That would be absolute max, right?
Okay, good stuff.
Ian, I think might have another question.
yeah, so that would be on per annum, right? 973,000 is the max per annum that we would be responsible for 30% of that? Is that
Yes,
correct? Okay, so we're on ongoing, we're potentially it's $275-ish thousand that we could be having to pay as Sycamus, if it ever got up to that max.
potentially, yes. I don't foresee that anytime soon.
Okay, thank you. So that's, yeah, I'm just trying to get a handle on what is our potential ongoing costs for this project, yeah.
Thank you. Okay. We want to keep our eye on the clock so we can get through everything before 1 o'clock. How we doing? Can we move on?
Thank you, Jody.
Jody, you've been more than gracious to us. Thank you so much. And we'll get more answers when Derek comes as we continue this formative budget. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much
very
for your
much.
time.
Thank you, Jody.
Thanks, Jody.
Thank you, Jody.
Bye-bye.
Good stuff. Okay. All right, so there's food coming at 12, so I think that we'll press through. And unless anybody needs a 60-second break right now.
I could use 60.
Okay, 75 seconds, let's go. We stretch your legs and come right back, and then we'll take a good break to get our food and Society, and we welcome you, Kelly. You'd like to stick in on this one?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not coming and asking for any money, at least in the first year. Actually, greetings to all. Nice to see you all. Good health to you in the coming year. In the last hour and a half, I've been quite educated on the financial aspect and the things that you guys do. That's always another level of interest for me, living in a small town. So I appreciate your efforts, both staff and council, in reviewing this stuff, just because I sat through it. So thank you for the education.
We're all good.
A lot of education.
Yeah, we're getting schooled, aren't we? Yes, yeah.
Anyways, I'm here. There was a package that was given. My gratitude to Bianca, saving some time for me last week to put the material together. And of course, Kelly's always in the background helping out. So it's been around for 30 years. I've been on the board for going on 5. There's been almost everybody in this town that's maybe been touched in one way or another by road rescue. So as I just heard about the rail trail and whatnot, you know, there's all these requests for money because there's less and less volunteers that are coming out. And that is what we're facing right now. And so we've gone from in 2021 having probably 11 responses. So it can't not exist. So the most logical place for it to be housed is here with the district. And we're at inception. There has been some groundwork that has been done. There's financials for you. We come with state-of-the-art tools, and I'm talking about the extractors that will get you out of the vehicles. So we have 2 primary roles that we do. If your vehicle goes over the bank and we are called out, we will rope rescue. And it is possible for one person to do that, although not recommended. And so that's what our training is on rope rescue. And the second thing is the extraction. If you are trapped in your vehicle, we have the tools and knowledge to actually get you out of that safely and do all the things that are safe about doing that before we actually do it. Somebody is in charge. In bigger cities, that is a function that's already part of the fire department. So we're saying, I'm asking for you to embrace this service as part of, as the fire department. We volunteers, I've been a volunteer. There is absolutely no pay to any of the volunteers in our society. So that will change when they come under the district, that there will be some financial compensation for the responders, and I'm sure it'll get integrated into the district as well, and there'll be paid people that are doing what I'm doing as a volunteer. So That's my more than 30-second spiel, but are there any questions?
Bianca,
Yeah, and just a touch, so what we're really asking for is for council to give their support for staff to work with Kelly and her team to figure out exactly what this is gonna look like. As a staff, we think it's a perfect opportunity, you know, we're at the firing, we're bringing on a new fire chief, figuring out exactly how that works. Talking to Kelly, you know, there is training requirements for road rescue. There's actually a lot of the road rescue crew is actually part of fire as well. So figuring out what that training will look like, I think it's really a perfect time for this to happen. It's just getting council support to make it happen and yeah, start the process. And in that too, we'll be talking to, you know, CSRD and looking at all of our funding options. Yeah.
thanks. All right, Councilor Rachel, Councilor Rich and Councilor Bailey.
To the chair, yeah, Kelly, good work and
I meant-
thank you for everything.
meant you.
do.
Thank you.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's impossible to try to run a volunteer organization now because it's just everybody's so busy and it's tough to find volunteers and it's just one or two people doing the same thing and like Snowmobile Club was the same way for years and it just, it has to become funded somehow.
Yeah.
And through the municipality, it might work very well. So yeah, I support it 100%.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councilor Rachel.
Everything you do.
Good stuff. And I meant to say Mayor Anderson, but my brain said Councilor Rich because it's in that direction. Go ahead.
I just wanted to just reiterate what Gord just said. Thank you very much to all the volunteers that it's a traumatic sometimes job and stressful. So thank you for all that you do. And yes, I support as a member of council, I support this as well sorry, Kelly. Thank you.
Thanks. Councilor Bailey.
Yeah, I support it as well. My eyes are starting to bug out of my eyes a little bit today with some of these figures that we're looking at. And I know the staff will do a really good job at trying to give us some projections and some ideas.
Yeah.
But, you know, clearly this is such a much needed service in the community and we have to find a way to make sure that this continues on. And thank you for bringing this forward. You know, it's important to ask for help. And sometimes organizations don't ask for help when they get into difficulty. So I commend you for doing that today and coming forward and I support this and wish you well working through with staff, Kelly. Thanks.
Councilor Beach.
Oh, sorry. Through the chair, yes, Kelly, this is not an easy thing.
No.
Yes. Dedication. Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I appreciate that and it's so critical. We all have to figure it out. We'll figure it out and I really support us looking at taking this on and making sure that it's really safe. So thank you so much.
Councilor McKeough.
Yeah, Kelly, thank you through the chair. I want to thank you for all your work as a volunteer. I know it's sometimes thankless and that's your baby. I have my baby with Eva. So I know the drill. I'd like to put forward a motion that we direct staff to look at the possibility of integrating your services as a local government function.
Yeah, do we have a seconder for that? Councilor Rich? I'm right this time. That's Councilor Rich. Okay, good. Yeah, Kelly, you're a living legend. You are so passionate about it and thank you so much. I'm fully behind it too. I appreciate what you work sent in and worked for Bianca to give us for the reading. It was really good and good to know and yeah, I'm 100% behind it as a counselor too. So that's wonderful. Okay, so we have first and second on the motion. Questions, comments? All in favor? That's it.
My heart, thanks.
Thanks, Kelly. Rock star. Okay.
Just grab something and have a working lunch.
Yeah, the food's here, so
Let's have a working one.
yeah, we're not gonna take a break. Just grab your food. We'll get back to work so we can definitely get everything done. You guys 15 minutes to stretch your legs. Take a pause.
Yeah, the 1 o'clock meeting is
Okay, so this item, it's been part of the capital planning for a while. We've identified this as an undersized main that runs down Riverside. We left off last year coming from the highway down Capel all the way to Riverside. We've got a valve ready to go and get the connection to take off heading towards the core. So just in context, we did 380 meters of water line last year on Capel. This would be 340. This section is off of Riverside. Takes us up to Martin Street. It would be a 6-inch AC being replaced by a 10-inch loop route. Yeah, so we've got some valve connections. We'll have a T at Martin Street. We've got a hydrant to do as well. There's 13 services coming off that line, which is important for you to know because a lot of those will be heading towards the lake. And the water line is on the east side of that road. So we would essentially be doing cuts all the way through that sidewalk. So the paving stone sidewalk to get to where the service connections need to be. So all that being said, we could go in and do the water line as we've identified and proposed we need to do because of the fire flow analysis done. And a bare minimum would be the first option. So we would get that water main upsized to the 10-inch like I'm talking about. We get 13 services done. We'd also have a provision in the budget to enhance the base. We found sections of Capel that needed some more meat and potatoes, so we had to bring in some rock. We've put an allowance in this, so if we encounter that kind of thing, we got the amount budgeted. All pricing allowance for engineering and a contingency as well built in, about 30% combined. So I think we're sitting pretty good. These are pretty conservative estimates. So we go to option one. It would just be the water line. Let's go in and do the water line. We need to do it. That's what we're going to pay because of all those lateral cuts across the road. I would strongly suggest that we pave that road when we're done. Otherwise, we'd be sorry. So I'm calling that the bare minimum. We do the water main, we pave the whole thing, and then we're doing some repair of the paving stones, which could be problematic. But you know, at the end of the day, we'd put all the little bricks back in place and hope for the best. Option two, A and B. I've broken this out because I'm really thinking, you know, between the two, we're probably in the sweet spot of what you may want to consider here. We're doing the water main on this job. We're going to mill and pave throughout. Then we're going to replace that curb and gutter that's, if you look at it, it's very worn, it's broken, it's chipped in a lot of spots. And there's been some patching on it and stuff, but that's an old sidewalk. And the paving stone, you know, we've had some issues with that as well. So if we go in, we can remove those paving stones and then we put asphalt down for option 2A, or we go to a concrete for a little bit more of a finished look. Really, I don't have a dog in the fight. I would be good with either one of these, thinking, you know, they're both really reasonable. I will say the asphalt, as you can see, is a little cheaper. It's easier for us to repair if something happens. It's easier on equipment. You don't get the joint deflections that bust your blades and everything else with concrete. Concrete, a little, you know, more finished possibly, but a little harder on the equipment, harder to repair, and doesn't hold up to the sand and the salt like we distribute it. So, you know, asphalt's a nice option. Concrete's an option for not much more. I did put option 3 in there. If we were to look at this road and try to construct it to our urban collector standard, which I'm not suggesting we do, but you know, there was a time when we were looking at what would it take to put power underground, widen it, increase the parking. So we get really high really quick. So yeah, I'm open to discussing this and hopefully we can get some direction. I'd like to get this tendered. The sooner we get it tendered and we leave a window open for, you know, good companies to come in, we have good options early in the year. We wait too long, we may not get good options with good contractors.
Councilor Rich.
Through the chair, I'm always about concrete sidewalks because I don't, people park on the asphalt, people don't know where to walk. Yeah, and I know we have the asphalt sidewalks around Sycamore, and I have a really hard people in cars have a really hard time figuring out that that's not where you belong. So I like the concrete sidewalks. And I'm wondering, if we do concrete, is there any money like in our, active transport fund somewhere that we could, because the sidewalk's a little bit more active than, asphalt is less active, I think.
That's that.
So that would be my vote is for the concrete. I think we really need to start defining our sidewalks. And I know it's a pain with the equipment. And I know it's harder, but when you're out and about, cars in this town and our tourists have a really hard time figuring out the difference between an asphalt sidewalk and a road.
Just so we're clear, and I totally appreciate your point. This would still have a curb and gutter, rolled curbs, so you would have a separated.
Oh, it'll be up.
Yeah,
Okay.
You'd be like it is now.
I'm happy either way then.
Just the surface would change.
Okay, it's not gonna be the
No,
same level like.
It's not an extended road.
In front of the Jadestone or something.
Like Capel.
Like.
Yeah, or like
It
Capel.
won't be a widened shoulder, it'll be a sidewalk, standard.
Okay. Then I'm happy.
Yes, Councillor Bushel.
Yeah, through the Daryl, because the Riverside's pretty much developed, almost developed. And it's got curb in there already and a brick sidewalk in most places. I like the idea about a concrete one because we have a ditch or swale there where we don't have a swale. So our sidewalk's pretty much level with landscaping and some of the trees are pretty mature. Like at Marylandine, and when those trees get big roots, they start to push up the asphalt rip. And you see that especially at Old Town Bay. It's the sidewalk out there is really lifted in different places. So I would say go the extra mile and put in concrete, but as long as everything's a rolled the curb, not a.
Yeah.
Take the curb off. So that's my preference, I think.
Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, just. I guess a couple of questions here. One is kind of changing maybe what Riverside is gonna look like. We have a new development where we're kind of going maybe down the road to something a little bit more RVP4 kind of look. I know when we talked about this option is on Riverside was, okay, we need to upgrade all of these facilities and infrastructure because we want to have big condo buildings kind of, or larger condo buildings built down there. I'm just wondering, is that really our plan anymore? It looks like we're kind of shifting away from that, or the market's shifting away from it really. And with that new information, have we thought about, does this need this upgrade at this point, Daryl?
So, I'll take your second question first. Does it need the upgrade? Yeah, so we have a 6-inch AC water line through there now. The sanitary system is fine. So we don't have to mess with that line at all. But it's constructed in 1960.
Okay.
So we've got an old AC in there. So I don't have to tell you guys about, the leaks we get from things like that. So water line definitely needs to be done. And then with all the lateral cuts through the sidewalk, it just makes
to do this, or just a follow-up question, maybe Kelly, Bianca. DCCs that we could get for this, I assume you're working through that with any new developers in terms of their contributions?
Yeah, so this is a DCC project.
It is okay,
Yes,
all right.
DCC project.
Oh,
Allowed to spend, I believe it's 33% or is it 25% of our
Yeah.
road DCCs on this project?
Yeah.
okay, all right. And then when we get to Todd's development, that'll also have DCCs that'll contribute to this project as well?
Yeah, so it will be
Okay.
per lot. So
Lot.
it will be per an RVP's lot. And so whatever that number is in that, that's what he'll have to contribute to us, which will be split between water, sewer, roads, whatever, it each has an element. Unfortunately, our new DCC bylaw done yet. So any of these developments that are coming through right now will pay our old rates.
Full rate, yeah.
Right? So there isn't that sewer component, but there is a road component and a water component. And a big park component.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Pam, did you have something?
Yeah, thank you, through the chair. I would like to just speak some of the concerns that I hear from the seniors community. I'm actually have asked them to sort of produce a letter and bring it to council. I haven't got that yet, but I just, as we're talking about it, I need to sort of let you know how they're feeling. Many of them that are still mobile in scooters and electric chairs find, and you've maybe noticed this on some of the roads, they find that the sidewalks with all of the cuts and the cobblestone are high wear and tear on their expensive scooters and wheelchairs, and that is their only mode of transport to be independent. So they have asked if we can make sure, and they would like to be consulted, they would love to be part of an accessibility review or study. Make sure that there's always just a no shoulders lane that's been designated where it's clear that it's for bikes and other modes, that they aren't forced to be up on a sidewalk. And how it came to my attention and why I sort of talked to them about it was that one day I literally turned down Shuswap and there was like maybe two or three of them. Maybe there was just two of them on scooters coming on the road. And I'm thinking, and I knew them, I knew who they were. And I'm thinking, why are they on the road? Like it caught me off guard, and it would catch any vehicle off guard, kind of coming into a roadway and you've got scooters on your road. So I asked them about it, and this is kind of where we started the discussion. And they just said, well, you know, it's so bumpy. It's so broken to be up on the sidewalk, and that's why we're down on the road. So as long as we don't put sidewalks on both sides and there's one that is drawn on for bikes and for scooters that they can ride on the level asphalt, then that's what they've requested. They don't want to have to be forced up on these sidewalks everywhere because they find it really quite rough on their mode of transportation.
Thanks, Pam.
We'll be getting a letter from them.
Okay,
To write.
all right, good stuff.
Yeah.
Councilor McCabe?
Yeah, thank you. Kind of goes against what Councilor Beach was talking about, but I was gonna ask if we do go with option 2B, the asphalt, the concrete sidewalks, how much extra would it cost to stamp the concrete to have some sort of theme to it?
But through the chair, I'm not sure exactly how much more. I think what we found with the stamped concrete is really slippery. It gets to springtime and freeze thaw stuff. It's just excessively slippery.
Gotcha.
Better have it brushed.
Daryl, on Shuswap Avenue, do we have sidewalks on both sides or just the one?
It's on the one.
Just on the one, yeah.
The one.
Yeah. So I thought.
It's a newer sidewalk, so I'm a little surprised to hear it's bumpy or
Well,
uneven.
can
Yeah.
I answer? It's the cuts. So, and it depends how fast the guys like to go fast. The ladies are more demure, so it's not an issue so much to them, but the cuts are hard on them. Some of them are, they're not only lacking mobility, they're in physical pain. But they need to get out and they still have the gumption to get out. So, yeah, and then the cobblestone definitely is a little bumpy for them. So it's the cuts in the concrete and the cobblestone.
Yeah.
That seems to bother them, and yeah.
We're about 7 years into the sidewalks being there. How have they stood up to the salt and the winter stuff. Concrete, yeah, on shoes,
Yeah,
pretty good.
it's doing okay. Yeah, it's doing okay. That one, just for interest's sake, we had that one constructed at 1.85 meters, so we could have 2 scooters passing. Remember, we did a big study before we actually went ahead with the sidewalk, so. Yeah, this would be.
Okay.
All of that, it would be more than that. So
But if we had a bike lane on the other side with no sidewalk, that would be a good thing.
we
And
have to look at it.
yeah, maybe
Or just, yeah, I'd have to take a close look.
on the width and everything and yeah, that's a big deal, yeah. Mayor should,
Carol, can you just go into a little bit more detail? Some storm rehabilitation laterals, dry wells.
Yeah, so there's not an existing storm system that runs down Riverside and discharges. We've got kind of a hybrid system that was done over the years. We have lateral lines that go across the road and they will drain into the east side of the ditch line. And so we have dry wells in different spots with a few of these lateral, like dry wells, I guess, for lack of a better word. So we would look to make sure all that stuff is functioning as well as it could be with this cost. Instead of rebuilding everything, we're just rehabbing.
So just work that's what we've already done. We're just
Yeah.
upgrading. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Council Bushel?
Just wanted to ask Pam, Pam, is it sure this, I mean, the new sidewalk we put into the seniors area, down in Shuswap, that one goes up and down quite a bit with all the driveways and everything. Is that maybe what they're, like, I mean, is it like the little cuts in the sidewalk that they're put there for
Yeah.
and everything?
Totally, I don't,
Is it that they're worried about, is it the up and?
no, it's not the up and down. That's what I thought too. It is actually the cuts. 'Cause
The expansion joints.
the expansion, because when they're going at a, like a maybe fast.
Hangs together.
I mean, I could try and just say you gotta slow down, but I mean, they're just, when they're out on their own, they're not using the sidewalk. And that's what kind of made me kind of ask them the question in the beginning, was the shock of kind of finding some of these 80-year-plus-year-olds on their scooters on the road. And so we've got to try and, take that into consideration. And it is the cuts and it is hard on them, because I know that some of them like to go out and tour a little bit, the husband-wife teams, and they find, they've quit because it's bumpy. And so, yeah, there's quite a number of them say that it would be easier if they were just down on the asphalt in a sort of designated lane. And then they also raised, well, there's no bike lane for anybody. That would be better for the bikes.
Okay, well, maybe also when we have the development in the seniors housing coming later today. We really want to make sure that we have, access. And especially with the new apartment buildings, if we somehow have that access through there, that's all fairly level. And doesn't have, maybe that's all asphalt, and we can.
Yeah, I mean, take them off of
Shuswap,
to go down Shuswap Avenue.
and have them come straight through.
Yeah, I mean, that would be too,
Asphalt.
yeah.
That's important.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Cave?
I guess my vote would be 2A.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Asphalt.
All right, so, you guys good?
Do we need to make a decision right
Don't have a
now?
resolution or.
Clear direction.
That'd be good to get.
Malcolm, do you want to make a motion? Sorry.
I opt that council direct staff to take the 2A approach with the asphalt sidewalk.
Okay, is that official wording? Are you seconding that? Okay, Ian seconding whatever the official wording of that motion is.
Got the gist.
There's got it. All in favor? Sorry, can't vote.
More concrete.
Opposed?
Come on, concrete.
I hate the tree ruts.
Yeah, they're awful, yeah.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Bumps or cuts, bumps or cuts.
And that's already in the budget, that a number of 1.3 million, I believe, is already in the capital budget, about that amount.
About that amount. We'll adjust it accordingly.
I would have voted concrete too, Gord, just so you know. Put it, okay. Next,
Okay, I'm just gonna talk quickly, just looking at our estimated tax increase now that we're getting into some more operational numbers. So, based on our complete roll, so we get a revised roll, in a little bit, in a couple months. Just based on our completed roll, which is usually doesn't significantly change, often. A 1% tax increase is $50,525. And that, if you're having to, talk to community members or whatever. So if a property has gone up relative to their property class average, they would see a 1% increase. So of that, so a 1% tax increase. So for residential, that average increase is 1.3 or 1.43 this year. And then those are all the other classes there. So that's what yeah.
Yeah, can I just ask, is this based on what their property assessment has gone up? Okay,
Yes.
so the average like business property assessment went up 11.76%.
Yes.
Oh, all right, thanks.
Cause it's complicated, right? Cause there's the assessment piece and then there's our tax increase piece, right? So if someone comes to you and says, hey, my assessment went up 10%, then the 1% is actually gonna affect them a little bit more.
Yes,
It's all relative.
right. Okay, now I understand. Thank you.
Yeah. So from our budget meetings previously, increases discussed, comes to 105,000, all the net budget impact. Taking in non-market change this year. Last year, we put non-market change to reserve. Just, because we were happy with our tax increase, we put to reserve. This year, understanding that times are tough, not putting it to reserve, so 50,000, so that's mostly your new construction. Bringing us to 54,000 of ones that we've currently discussed. So far, budget impact of 1%.
And that new construction is about $16 million, I think, of new construction for the year. So that's just new growth or changes in classes.
Yeah. So we're gonna discuss a few items today, but if everything was supported that we're about to discuss, we would be at a preliminary tax increase of 3.33%. Yeah.
Just
hang on, Councilor McCabe and then Councilor Bailey.
I bet Osuas would like to have you on staff.
Yeah, Councilor Bailey.
sorry, was that good? Okay, yes, I agree. Definitely a lot better than the soy use, that's for sure. No, that looks really good. Just when we add on water and sewer, kind of where, I'm just trying to get a sense of what's the total package that we kind of control increase?
Yeah, so water this year, we're proposing from our last meeting, no increase in water, and then a 5% bump up in sewer, which I think was $17 for the average.
And this will all be summarized at our next.
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah.
We will have it all, a beautiful little summary of all the ups and downs and the impact to the average person and all that kind of goodies. And
That's great.
just also on a side note, we've looked at some other preliminary as well as other property taxes that are proposed for 2024, just I couldn't barely find anything under 5%. So Salmon Arms 5.59, Revelstoke's 5%, 4.75, Vernon is 5.49, Lake Country is 10.02, Kamloops is 10.81, Soyuz is 37%. So our tax, like the District of Sicamous, we do a very, very good job of making our dollar stretch and maximizing our efficiency to we have a lot of high performers here and we're able, and we do watch every invoice that comes in and we're very mindful, and we don't inflate the budget like maybe some other people, organizations might for buffer. We're very, very lean.
Yes.
because the budget's important, because that's, your actual can be what your actual is. And I mean, that's what we base the budget on. But your budget is how we determine what the tax rates are. So that's why the budget's important. Anyways, I'm done my speech.
No, that's good.
In the world that we live in, man, with coffee cream being $6.10 a liter. It's amazing. Counselor McCabe?
I'm good.
Oh, you good? Counselor Bushel?
Mayor was next.
Counselor, Mayor Anderson? I'm so glad this is almost done.
I think it's quite funny. Yes, and thank you, staff, and thank you for all the hours that you're putting in. I know you've been working really hard on this, and yes, you know what, we've done a great job on controlling your costs. I guess my question is with that 3.33, I don't want us to turn into a Soyuz or anywhere else. I want to, do we have enough, are we putting enough in reserves? Like, we have enough?
We haven't budgeted to increase them right now for our regular reserves.
This includes just our regular reserves.
This is our regular reserves, not water and sewer. That's
Yeah,
separate.
You know,
And you know, I think from I don't know if it's enough, but we do allocate $1 million of our $5 million tax base into capital every year. 620 goes into reserves and 450 or 425 goes into actual capital for the year. For a small local government, I think that's a lot. Is it going in the right reserve? Well, this is where we need to pin down our asset management plan to actually figure out what our replacement costs are. Water and sewer are different beasts. I know operations has been working through infrastructure master plans for some time now. I mean, I think our biggest thing will be our wastewater treatment plant, which we're gonna have to look at upgrading that. And it will have to probably get long-term financing and debt to do the upgrades, because it's gonna be a big one, right? So we're just trying to figure out what that looks like.
Anderson.
Question, please. We've been putting $1 million in for that amount for how long? Like we haven't increased it at all. Is that something that we should look at though? It's just because everything else is increasing. Like, should we look at a tiny increase in that as well? Like,
That council can decide to do that if they want to, you know, this is where we're sitting right now. I mean, we'll discuss these pieces. If they say, hey, 3.33, let's buffer up our reserves, we can do that. We can add, maybe some of these get cut. And then we add some to reserves, that's on the table. If you want to increase it by a certain percentage or whatever, we can do that. I'm sure Daryl would love to have more in roads.
And this would, we have to figure out what reserve makes the
Yeah.
most sense to allocate that to, but not a bad question. So so right now we do 620. When I started, it was around 400. So it has gone up over the years. I know a couple years ago, we increased the public works equipment one. We've added some new reserves and put money in there. And I think until we have and the goal is to have it done by the end of 2024, because I cannot handle talking about it anymore, is an asset management plan where we actually can see, you know, what actually we do need and when we need it to replace what we have, and then we can intelligently allocate those funds accordingly. We don't have that answer quite yet, so I don't know what, you know, if we're good or bad technically, you know? But we're not putting a, you know, horrible amount away. It's always good to put more.
Okay, thanks. Gordon?
Yeah, no, I really think, 3.33%, that's amazing. We're not done yet. Hopefully so that we can, do some more tweaking as well. But I do agree with Colleen, like, I mean, there's some of our assets, in the community that, that we could do a little bit extra, with, like our boat launches and stuff like that. And, it would be nice to finish our boat launches and have them done properly and plan for that. It's gonna take some time, but I do, for that 3.3, and we're not there yet. We're still got more budgeting to do, but if there's a little bit of room, I'd sure like to see Parks and Recreation or boat launches have a little bit more money put into it. That's my opinion.
Councilor Bailey?
Yeah, one of the questions I get asked quite regularly is just where we sit with the average home and the tax rate they pay versus other communities. I don't know, maybe the rest of you've heard the same thing, is that salmon arms are cheaper for their home versus us. Like, do we have a sense of where we sit within that mix? Like,
I can get you graphs and everything for our next meeting, try to,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, it would be nice to have some information on it, because I don't really know, to tell you the truth.
Ellie's done some.
Yeah, I've done it before
Yeah.
in the years that I've been there, because it's not an uncommon question,
Yeah.
you know, where do we fit in compared to other?
Another average, yeah.
Yeah, and I would say salmon arm, we're probably a little bit higher, our average residential, but I mean, we're way lower compared to Revelstoke.
Right.
Right, I know Oliver and Osoyoos historically had very low residential tax rates, but now all of a sudden they're doing quite a large tax rate. So I think because all we have is essentially residential and our business and our industry is very small. So the bulk of the burden, 80% of it is in single family residential. So that's who pays the bulk of it. So that's why ours is higher. Like Salmon Arm has more commercial and it has an industrial park, so they can, and those tax ratios and the amount you charge on those is higher, right? So you're able to compensate for that, but we don't really have that. And so that's why our residential is a little bit higher, but it isn't way out of line. And yeah, we can take a look at some
Thanks.
that most definitely.
Thanks, Counselor Beach.
Like,
Oh. I'm just a wee bit confused because we went from water main upgrades down to the very bottom preliminary tax increase, so I didn't find it right away, but are we going back to?
Yeah,
Yes.
we'll pop them back up.
Okay,
just before we talked about each specific thing.
oh, that's why you went down. Sorry, I missed that part. Okay.
Okay, Counselor Bushel, then Mayor Anderson.
Just when, Bianca, when you do these comparisons, and Kelly will be able to help you too, well, you check your own tax rate, but is there like the services attached to that, like furniture, any, whatever, not just your residential taxes, but what services are included, that if you can pick that out of there, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think you need to keep those separate though, because I think to Ian's point, what we're looking for is basic residential. I mean, just what is our collection, our tax collection for just residential?
Amount.
How much revenue we generate from that? Ugh, I
Just
have to go
residential
back
in the
to
DOS.
Spreadsheets. We can look at some.
1 second.
So to determine what, this is where it's also risky comparing to other municipalities, because like we just have, municipal taxes, X amount, right? But it covers whatever services, like we run a health center, right? We do daycare stuff, right? But we don't do garbage, right? Well, it all depends on the services you're provided, and you're not gonna be able to see that from a tax notice. You have to literally go into their budget and figure out, we all know the general services like parks and snow and whatever, but I think as a local government, and I think Bianca can agree after, like she worked at Salmon Arm, we do provide a lot of that another local government doesn't do because the private sector is doing it and we've taken on ourselves.
Just below.
Thanks, Gord.
Is residential tax.
Wow.
Just below 4 million.
Yeah.
That's, I had to break that down. That was 60 grand on the west side, right? That they contribute to taxes, correct?
Well, if there's 20 million, it would be about
Yeah.
60,000.
Okay,
Okay. So one thing we want to discuss, placeholder for CP rail crossing rehab. We just got some information on it, and Daryl and Jeremy and the team is gonna be pushing back and getting more information, because when this is discussed, we want all of the ducks in a row, and we want all the information, and maybe we can even get a CP rep to talk to us as a council. So yeah, that one's gonna be coming back. Okay,
Mayor Anderson, got a question?
Take a comment on
Yeah.
that. Is there any way that, I know, and I hate to use that word extortion, but I mean, we deal a lot with CP here in Sycamoose with our train bridge. And and I know that whistles are really important and a safety feature. But the crossing at, Sycamoose, is it Sycamore Sands? We don't have arms there. Yeah, but that's where, or sorry, Silver Sands, and that's where that's where this money is going, that rehab.
That rehab. In which we're, right now on the hook 100%. So we're trying to get all of those numbers figured out.
And Daryl, do you remember off the top of your head what it was to put the arms in on Cambie South Squad? Do you guys remember?
A fraction of the number I've seen here. I don't remember exactly. I'd be guessing, but the number I've seen here for the estimate is far exceeds by a lot of times.
Yeah, we should have a chat with them.
That one will be a to be continued.
There's just a placeholder for now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've just got a placeholder. It's not a lot of money. I've been back and forth with Keith Lear, who used to be a senior advisor with the province, with Crown Lands. And so there's a bit of a wordy email there, but I've got a placeholder for $10,000 to use his services to help us even do a preliminary assessment of whether a head lease makes sense. And I know he's already been doing some work and not charging us. He's, you know, he cares and he wants to help out. So if council will bless a $10,000 placeholder, so then I can engage with Keith to help us, you know, start taking the next steps to seeing what we can do with relating to that.
Okay, so does somebody want to make, do you want to comment?
No, I want to make the
Want to make the motion for that?
I don't need a motion.
We don't need.
Oh, because the money's
Oh,
in the budget, right?
Okay.
The money's gonna be in the budget.
Thanks, ma'am. Thanks for being willing. Okay.
I normally love a good motion, Pam, so.
I wasn't guaranteeing a good motion. I was just watching be left without something.
Yeah, valid. And just further to this note, and I don't know how many of council is aware, so I just thought I'd bring it up because it relates to water stuff, is that the Development Corporation has been partially assisting a few of the channel owners to incorporate a society. They're calling it Sycamoose Narrows.
Environmental Enhancement Society.
Right, they're calling it SNEEZ, right? And they're a group of channel owners and water tenure holders that are getting together to, you know, look at ways to ensure.
Well, they're trying to get costs down because they all do the same reports whenever they need to do a report. So if Papa's has to do a wind wave study, then 3 doors down, if somebody needs to do something, they're doing the same, they're spending the money that they don't need to. Right, so with a society, they can group their society together and cut some costs. They can also move forward on finding easier ways for us as the district Sycamoose to get clarification or approval on water tenure. So that's what a head lease would do for us. And then, of course, they're also going to look at moving forward, dredging the channel, like getting information and getting all of our ducks in a row, because I think it's important that the channel does get dredged and fish habitat, you know, I mean, they're an environmental enhancement group, so they will look after that. They will look after, maybe look at some mussel, zebra and quagga mussel, or like this could, I'm actually quite impressed with this group because I think that they could be that model for other communities. So other communities could look at this and go, that's how we made it simpler. That's how Sycamoose is doing. Like you looked at, was it Langford? And went, oh my gosh, you know what? He's got it go. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's very important. I know, because I know you went to one of the meetings and I yet to,
First one.
yeah, I just know that there's work happening behind the scenes. And further to that point, I've reached out to this fellow named Andy from DFO, and we're arranging a call, because what I want to make it clear is that what's the district working on versus what SNEEZ is working on, and that we're not overlapping. So if we focus on, let's secure a head lease, and, you know, SNEEZ, you're working on steps for dredging. Or, you know, so I do have a call that I'm arranging with a couple of those board members, and maybe potentially, I'm thinking Councillor Bushel and Mayor Anderson with DFO and a few people from the province to get like a little bit of understanding of some next steps for dredging. of which Keith has got me contacts for. So there's work happening behind the scenes as it relates to that stuff. No money has been spent at all, but there is work to make sure that we're trying to protect our water area. And
It's
have all the information that we need.
cool. Council Bushel?
Yeah, through the chair, Colleen's right. I mean, the marina owners or the waterfront owners, they're just spending copious amount of money trying to do these same studies. And it's not only just, like even the QEP studies, they're all identical. They're literally all identical. And if you can kind of refine them down to one, and then if we as have a head lease and we can help, you know, facilitate those, and, you know, we have a great planning department that says, yeah, you don't need to, your neighbor just did one, yes, you know, last week. You don't need to do one, you know, this week. It's, you know, he's right next door. It's the same water. It's the same, you know, maybe tweak it a bit, but not go out and spend another 50 grand on a QEP report that the neighbor just did 2 weeks ago. So it really speed things up, and it might take time to do, but I think it's really important.
It'll be here.
Yeah, but I agree. If we focus on our piece and they focus on their piece and we support each other, I wouldn't be surprised, and they haven't said anything to me, but I wouldn't be surprised if this not-for-profit asks for some money, a grant. Money down the road, depending on what they did working on and any, I know they're all planning on putting in some money,
Yeah.
but you know, everything, you know, I just wouldn't be surprised.
Gordon?
Yeah, when we had the Sycamoose Narrows Enhancement Society years ago, and Gordon Mackey was, we put him as the president, and we crowned the court in regards to, they turned us down for dredging. And, we all kicked in, like, I can't remember, I mean, I think court was like 30 grand or something like that. And we did, the district didn't kick in any money for that at that time, but they've done a lot of studies since then. And, so yeah, we're gathering all that information and giving it to Carly, and Carly's getting it all put into, to go to their board, and yeah, it's coming along.
Good stuff. Councillor Bailey?
Yeah, I support this. I just think we need to be pretty smart about this going forward and realistic. I mean, we know the path to this requires consent from the SWAT scene. You know, if the early discussions are, they're not comfortable with that because of what they're doing with the NOI, then any of this discussion around head lease is totally irrelevant because it won't go anywhere. You know, we could work on it for years, but if they're not prepared to give consent for that head lease, I think the probability of us attaining one is extremely low, if not impossible for the province to give it to us under the UNDRIP protocol. So I think it's good to really explore this, but I think we also have to be realistic in understanding what are the absolute roadblocks that we could face, and there are many on this. So, I mean, I think the 10,000 is smart to spend this year, as long as we know that, I guess in the back of our minds, if the answer is no, then I would be saying we shouldn't be investing more taxpayers' money into doing something that we know has a low chance of success. I'd say the same thing around, you know, the dredging. That's, I think it's absolutely necessary as well, but we know there's a lot of other concerns around the channel and things about dock and expansions. We've heard that from our partners, and especially from the SWAT scene who have the NOI there. So as long as we're realistic as to how much money we want to all sink into it, then I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, Mary Anderson.
Okay, and then I just want to say, when we say dredging, we should also include flood mitigation, dredging and flood mitigation, because that's why we're looking into this too, because it's the property owners on the east side that, you know, the water's filling their. So we should call it mitigation. Okay, sorry.
Okay, that's okay. No, good stuff. I'm just looking at the time. Okay, good to go. Move on.
Master Transportation Plan in conjunction with Ministry of Transportation. Nicole and Kelly. Go for it, Nicole.
Yeah, sure, through the chair. So we've been in contact with the Ministry of Transportation. Sorry, just about an integrated transportation plan. It's not just for Trans-Canada Highway. It would include Highway 97A and then any kind of our local roads that intersect with the highway. And so this study would identify a plan for any kind of new access to the highway, intersection upgrades, frontage or backage road requirements connecting to the highway, and then active transportation connections, so pedestrian and cycling, which I know we've talked about before. So transportation let us know they've earmarked 100,000 maximum for the study. And so what we have here, Bianca, is 50,000 for this year and potentially 50,000 for next year for us to do it 50-50. And so the process would be hiring a consultant to do a terms of reference. Transportation and ourselves would agree to it, council approves it, and then the consultant would do the study. And then we would have ongoing communication about what the result of the study is.
Comments or questions? Yeah, Councilor McCabe.
Are you including that report that Ministry of Transportation did in 2018? Okay, because that's got a pretty good body of work in there, really. It shows where the intersections are going to be and frontage roads and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they did mention that one, and I'm not familiar with it, but I think they had said, I don't know, was it too old or something?
Well, there's some stuff in there that is no longer relevant anymore, like, right, like where the Eagle River Bridge is. It's also not the Eagle River, it's not specific.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Options there, so some things have changed, so, and they really want to look at the connection between our roads and our active transportation and their highways, and because they're closely related, so that's why we're thinking 50-50. It's like 50% their highway bits and 50% our roads connecting to theirs. It may change as we develop this terms of reference, but for now at least, and this is something that we did apply for a grant for a year ago, 2 years ago, I'm not quite sure, and we weren't successful with the money, but I think it's really important that we have this plan for future growth of our community.
Yeah. Yeah, because thank you for follow up. Yeah, because I hate to say the highway town, some people call it. And also that traffic impact study we did, that would be good information for that group to make sure they're aware of that. So those two are good baseline information to work with.
Yeah, and that one's just in August.
Yeah, so it's more current than what MOT would have.
Yeah, good stuff. Councilor Bailey?
Yeah, no, I support this, but I always have a hard time going, boy, it must be a good time to be a consultant, like 100 grand for a study like this. I mean, hopefully it could be less, but I mean, this was something that we just had done in 2018 and here's another $100,000 we'll do 5 years later. All these studies is like, you gotta wonder how much it's costing the economy to have studies.
It's a lot. Councilor Bushel?
And just with the highways, you know, I did look at the BC bid and the Boone Bridge has gone out or closed and in there they say awarding it in May, sometime in May. So, yeah, that whole losing access over on Gill there and you know, that whole section, I know it's Shane's property, but having that intersection there would be huge, so hopefully we can include that in that study. You know, it's really important to be able to have access to your community.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Okay, yeah, Pam?
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of say that this probably is a good point to be pushing for this kind of stuff now that they're moving forward with Brunn and the 4-laning of a piece of that, a piece of the corridor. So maybe the timing will be just right and we'll get more than they plan to do. We could talk them into it.
That always happens.
Yeah, good stuff. Councilor McCabe?
And I think it's important to point out those two things we discovered in our traffic impact study that was sort of a bonus, that the main one, that the left-hand turn westbound off Trans-Canada to Highway 97 is not the current standards.
Mhm.
And that's people, that's how we get people off the highway and into our town.
Yeah. Okay?
Yep.
All right. Thank you, Nicole. Let's move on.
Touch on that, Kelly, or? Councilor Beach.
Oh,
Natural asset, take.
yeah, so from our strategic priorities list, I think that this was identified as one of the items to sort of look more at natural assets and how we can capitalize on them going forward in terms of climate adaptation and services and that kind of thing. So I had so I had asked Kelly where, for sort of a status on that, and she's got some stuff for us, so.
I don't have a lot, but what I do have is actually too funny, Emily from the Natural Asset Initiative just emailed me back today, so we're gonna set up a call, but there is grant funding out there. So we have a placeholder of 20,000 of grants, 20,000 for work. We haven't applied for anything yet. We're just trying to figure out exactly what this may look like, but how natural assets work is you identify what natural assets you have, and then how you work those in with your municipal assets. So how can they help with storm management and all that? So it's kind of a connection, natural assets with our other asset management. So this wouldn't be a taxation effect. It would be hey, let's gather some information. Let's look for some grants and see about getting the ball rolling. Staff resources committed to it.
Okay, that's what we got so far.
Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. Questions? Yeah, Pam?
No, I want to make a motion. No, you don't need a motion?
No. Okay, so normally in committees, specifically in a finance committee, because it's all in a bylaw that will be adopted, unless there is Daryl's a bit of an odd duck with his direction on the paving, because he wanted specific direction, on that one, so he could tender it, but normally in the finance meeting, we just do more discussion, less motions.
Less motions, okay.
Councillor Rich.
Through the chair, and this is not towards this project, as we're saying, a placeholder for this and a placeholder for that, I think the other thing we need to be really cognizant of as we put money aside is next year is going to be a nightmare for the staff with the healing center coming on, and I know that the 36 apartments are EV Senior Center SS, but that is going to include lots of staff, and then the 52 units, again, that is going to be a massive staff project. We're not sure what's happening with the arena. So I think as we add placeholders, we also have to think, where is the staff getting all this time? And is this the year to do it? Or do we need to preserve, we're talking about putting money in reserves. Maybe we also need to put some of our staff time into reserves. So I don't know how everybody feels about that, but we have lots of really great things that we need to do. But I think we also have to really focus on doing what we're doing really well and maybe adding a few less things next year.
Good point.
Thanks.
Good point.
Good stuff. Welcome.
I agree 100% in Councillor Rich's statement there. Don't even have a planning department.
Sorry, Nicole.
She's a rock star.
Super Nick.
I know.
But yeah, no, I'd just like to echo that comment that we do have to be cognizant of all the good things we're doing. There's only a limited capacity with staff to make that.
Thanks, Malcolm.
Agree.
Thank you. That's really appreciated. And you know what? This particular one is funded by grant. So if it may or may not be, top of the list to get done. And that's one of the things like next Friday when we talk about our priorities and prioritizing them, just recognizing that we have a lot of large projects, that there's a lot of moving parts behind the scenes and a lot of eyes that are looking at it. And it's our job as staff to execute these projects seamlessly for the public. And we may make it look easy, but it's not as easy as one may think. There's lots of stuff going on.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
And this is not guided at this, I really like the natural resources thing. It's not guided at that. It's we've, talking about playgrounds and parks and bridges and
Yep.
8 million things. And I think we need to do what we're doing really well.
Yeah, thanks. All right, Wild Safe BC,
One,
last one.
okay. So
We're done.
back in, I think it was December, we had Wildlife Safe BC come here, they presented. We asked about, what the financial breakdown would be. I've now received what they think it would be, and, we said that we would make the decision once you finalizing the budget numbers. So I got this projected, budget from Wild Safe BC on what, $4,000 is what they project it would cost us, what it would get us. I just put a little note here kind of showing what the three areas or municipalities would be doing, and talking to them, it sounds like our contribution kind of dictates how much time that we would get from their one individual. Anyways, putting it back on the table, if we want to do Wild Safe BC or not. This would require some staff resources because we would have to coordinate with their coordinator on what sickness needs. So anyways,
So it's a $14,000 salary. That mean, are we talking about someone that's working quarter time?
yeah, they don't work all the time. They're just working on little projects.
Right, so $4,000 of our money towards somebody that's working maybe a quarter time. I'm just,
So, yeah.
you're Councilor Rich.
Still am Councilor Rich. Yeah, through the chair, I'm not big on this one, and I do lots of stuff with wildlife, unfortunately. They mostly focus on bears. Sycamore seems to have rats and raccoons. And
Mountain lions.
have garbage, like we have garbage pick up privately, but most people haul. I think if we're gonna spend $4,000 on wildlife issues in Sycamore, that's something we probably can do internally, or the food savers are going like hotcakes out the window. Maybe we want to get a few more of those out.
Like hot-
That's compost. But for me, I just don't think it fits our community at this time.
Thank you, Gord.
Yeah, through the chair, I was gonna ask Bianca, are those other people committed?
I think they all commit during their budget times.
Yeah.
And they haven't even opened, I haven't gotten a notification that they've opened up registration yet. It opens usually end of January.
Yeah, myself, I think we could do better ourselves. I'm not a big fan of this, but
Okay,
that's my opinion.
thanks. Colleen?
I think that I agree with you too. I think we do. And I think that's why we didn't jump in last time. Daryl did some signs. He put up some, bear beware signs all over the place. Yeah, I just think that education is probably key for us. And I think $4,000 of education in our community is way better than a part-time person popping in and out.
Okay, Malcolm.
I agree.
Pam, what do you think?
Yeah, I think we can probably do it ourselves.
Yeah,
I agree.
okay. There you go.
Awesome.
All right. It is 12:56. We have 4 minutes till our next meeting. We have a motion to adjourn the finance meeting right now. Or it's seconded by Ian. You got 3 minutes. Take a break.
Good job.